Some people will dismiss me as a conspiracy theorist or a crackpot. Hell, if someone had told me a few months ago that all the executions in the United States are staged, I would have laughed in their face. That is, until I awoke a few nights ago to a frenzied pounding on my door, and my entire world got turned upside down. For the last few years, I've had a recurring nightmare at least a few times a week. A nightmare where I kept having to travel down a rickety, dilapidated hallway in different bodies. I would be an old woman, then a little girl, then a middle-aged man, and so on. I kept taking different bodies, first dozens, and then hundreds of them. I couldn't ever remember what happened when I got to the end of the hallway and pushed open the black, rotted door that waited there like some giant, grasping hand ready to pull me into hell. There would be a terrible roar, a cacophony of screaming. The earth would tremble. Then I would find myself back at the front of the house reborn. The dream would start over again. All around me, I would see the bodies I had temporarily occupied piled up with their throats slashed. In a new body, I would be forced to go down the hallway yet again and meet whatever ineffable horror awaited at the end. A horror so terrible that I could never remember or comprehend it. Help me, God, please help me, take me out of this hell. I cried in my dream, feeling as I rose up into white light at the end, yet still screaming in both my nightmare and in real life. There was a hard smash against the front door of my cabin. I jumped up in bed, sweating heavily. For a long moment, I thought I was still in the nightmare. I looked around my small, dim bedroom, expecting to see bodies stacked one on another like pieces of cordwood. They're right behind me. Please, for the love of God. The voice that had awakened me erupted into nonsense and racking sobs. Fully awake now, I jumped up and turned on the lights. The cabin I lived in was cramped and only meant for one person. It had a bedroom, a joint kitchen-living room, and a bathroom. No one lived within 2 miles of me in any direction. I had moved to the Texas desert for the privacy after all. I didn't really like people that much. I ripped open the door and found a disheveled man standing there in bright orange coveralls. He had rivulets of blood streaming from what looked like a bullet hole in his shoulder. His gray, faded eyes were wide and filled with panicked tears. He had a face like a tired bulldog. All of the hair on his head had been shaved off, except for his eyebrows and eyelashes. His white scalp gleamed like a freshly polished bowling ball. He stumbled past me, pushing me aside and slamming the door shut. The house shook with the force of it. I realized that he towered over me, and I wasn't exactly short. The man must have been nearly 7 feet tall. "Oh, thank God," he said, still weeping. He fell to his knees, grabbing my shirt in supplication, wringing the cloth between his large, calloused hands. A sense of panic rose through my chest. I wondered if I had inadvertently just let in a lunatic or a killer. I looked at his clothes closer. Stamped on the back in large, black letters, I saw the acronym TDCJ. My heart turned into a block of ice as I recognized a prison uniform. "Hey there, stay back," I said in a trembling voice, backpedaling quickly from the kneeling man. I thought of my shotgun in the other room. Mentally, I kicked myself for not grabbing it. "It's not like that, man, really," he said, showing me his empty hands. "I'm supposed to be dead. They officially executed me last night. Look, you can check. Do you have a phone?" I reached for the phone in my pocket, deciding to dial the police. He jumped up and snatched it from my hands as quickly as a frog snatching a fly. I cried out in alarm, turning away to run back to the bedroom and lock myself inside. A large hand came down on my shoulder, squeezing it tightly within its iron grip. "I'm not dangerous, friend," he said. "I was falsely convicted, just like a lot of others. They put me on death row and supposedly executed me last night. Look." He typed something on the phone quickly, pulling up a news article. Against my better judgment, I looked. "Texas man executed by lethal injection for 2012 murder of his ex-girlfriend and her mother," it read. I saw the man's tired bulldog face looking back out at me from the phone screen. I froze, feeling very confused. I wondered if the man had somehow gotten a website to write up a fake news article. But why? Was this all some sort of prank? I gingerly took the phone back. The man gave it up without a struggle. I read the article, seeing the man's name. Donald G. I went back to Google and typed in his full name, finding dozens of other articles reporting his death by lethal injection, including some by international media outlets. I scratched my head. I don't get it, I said. What is this? Why are you here? The man looked nervously at the door. We don't have a lot of time, he responded in a raspy, tired voice. The bleeding from his shoulder had slowed to a trickle of dark, clotted blood. Do you have a car? Of course I have a car, I said. Then please, take me out of here, and I'll tell you everything on the way. I hesitated for a long moment. Please, sir, I can guarantee you that you'll never hear another tale like it. All right, but I'm taking my gun and my phone, I said. If you try anything, I'll blow your fucking head off. Understood? The man nodded, resigned, still checking outside the front window, every few moments with a growing sense of panic. Sighing, I extended my hand. And by the way, my name's Roger. I'm Donnie, he said, giving me an exhausted smile. We got in the car. I put the loaded shotgun between the driver's door and my seat, propping it straight up. Donnie got in the passenger seat, wincing. He grabbed at the bullet hole, breathing hard. His face turned chalk white, and I thought he might vomit for a moment. I have some 11 here, I said, reaching into the center console and handing him some pain relievers and a half bottle of water. I noticed with dismay that he was bleeding on my seat. Those stains would not be coming out anytime soon. I sighed. Thanks, he grunted, taking 4 of them in one go. He chugged the water as I turned on the old Ford sedan, pulling out onto the empty desert road. Donnie continuously checked the rearview mirrors, but the road stayed deserted. I can't tell you all of it, because that would take all night. I guess it all started when I got home late from work and got an unexpected call from my ex-girlfriend. I had dated Olivia for a few years. We had recently broken up, but we stayed on good terms. We still talked regularly and helped each other out. She was an accountant, you see, and I was a carpenter who owned my own business. So she would help me out with taxes or paperwork or whatever, and sometimes I'd go over and help her when she or her mother needed to install some cabinets or bookshelves or anything. She had called me the previous week, saying something about seeing a strange craft flying over her house. She said it would stop in mid-air, as if a videotape had been paused. Then, in a blur, it would jump to the next point. It was high in the air, so she said she couldn't see the design of it, but it sparkled with gold and silver hues. I had dismissed it as fanciful, assuring her it was probably just a military helicopter or a weather balloon or something. I was just getting home from work, bone tired, when my phone rang. I looked down, seeing it was Olivia. We had been broken up for a few months by that point, but we still talked at least once every couple weeks. It was strange to be getting a call at 11 p.m. though. She never stayed up this late. Hey, what's up? I said. I heard her heavy breathing on the other end of the line. Donnie, I think someone's peeking in the windows, she said. I saw a face, watching me sleep. It was someone with a gas mask on. Call the police then, I said, my heart speeding up. Why are you calling me? I don't want to make a fool of myself if it's nothing, she said. Can you come over and check around the house for me? I only lived about a 3-minute drive from Olivia and her mother. Sighing, I agreed. I got in the car, speeding over as fast as I could. When I pulled up in front of their quaint, one-story colonial, I saw the front door was wide open and all the lights were on. A sense of dread filled my chest. I had my pistol with me, just in case. I turned off the safety and cocked it. I heard chaos inside, something being thrown and glass shattering. A woman's scream shattered the rural Texas night. The crickets all went quiet as I sprinted into the house. Instantly, I could smell the blood. That coppery, metallic smell that awakens something primal in the human heart. I knew it meant trouble. Waves of adrenaline smashed against the shore of my consciousness. Everything felt slowed down and unreal. My feet moved with their own mind. I walked forward, my breath seeming too loud, like a roaring cyclone in my ears. I found Olivia and her mother in the kitchen, their throats cut from ear to ear. The blood-stained butcher knife that had done the deed in so little time lay discarded on the floor like a broken toy. I knelt down over Olivia, seeing her sightless eyes staring blankly up at the ceiling. I tried doing what little CPR I knew how while I called the police, but all I ended up doing was getting her blood all over me. When the police came in with guns drawn and arrested me for murder, I tried protesting, saying that my cell phone's GPS would show I wasn't at the house, and that I was the one who had called 911 in the first place. But none of that got entered into trial, and before I knew it, I was on death row and awaiting my final day. I talked to a lot of other people in prison. Lots of people claimed to be innocent, but something bothered me. It was the call I had gotten from Olivia the week before. Headlights flashed far behind us. I noticed a black car speeding up. I heard the revving of its powerful engine. "I think we've got company," I said, thinking first that it was the police. I was absolutely enthralled by Donnie's story, and while I still had my doubts about the veracity of it, the fact that the news media was apparently lying about his execution added some weight to his account. The car behind us accelerated fast and swerved into the wrong lane. It pulled up beside me, and that was when the sinking feeling started in my stomach. This wasn't the police. The dark, tinted window rolled slowly down. I tried speeding up and braking, but whatever I did, it kept pace directly next to me. "Oh shit, it's them," Donnie said. A moment later, the back window shattered. Glass exploded all over the back seat. I swerved, horrified. Looking over, I saw the end of a rifle sticking out the open window of the black sedan. I gave the shotgun to Donnie while I tried to keep swerving and speeding ahead of the madman next to me. "Shoot them," I screamed. "It's loaded." He didn't hesitate. He rolled down his window and stuck his massive body out of the car. I heard the blasts of the Bentley Nova echoing off the roof as if a cannon had gone off. A burst of fire erupted from the rifle sticking out of the faceless black car keeping pace with us. I saw their window explode inwards at the same time that my car swerved crazily to the left as the front driver's side tire blew apart. The wheels spun under my hands. I felt the car start to spin, drifting over into the other lane. With a tortured shriek of rending metal, the front of my car smashed into the black sedan, sending it careening off the side of the road into a pile of boulders, each of them 2 or 3 tall. I saw Donnie fly out of the window as the car spun. Then I smashed my head on the steering wheel and felt the world going black. From far away, I heard a car's engine giving tortured grinding sounds and loud ticking noises like some large mechanical heart with a fatal arrhythmia. I smelled transmission fluid and coolant. But I was too stunned to really comprehend what was happening. I inhaled deeply, and my vision came back slightly. Blood streamed from my nose and a gash across my forehead. I felt like I was looking through a tunnel, the bright colors of reality blurring around the edges. I don't know how long I sat there, hyperventilating and bleeding all over the steering wheel. Finally, I ripped off my seatbelt, stumbling out into the dark night. On the side of the road, I saw Donnie's mangled body. He was still breathing, choking on his own blood. It bubbled and frothed from his blue lips as he twitched and blinked rapidly, his hands clenching and unclenching, the knuckles white. His fingernails had begun to turn cyanotic and pale as a puddle of blood spread out from under his crushed body. His right leg looked totally shattered, and I saw pieces of sharp bone poking out through the skin. Laying a few feet away, I found my little 12-gauge Nova, a little scraped up, but still in fine working order. Bentley has always been a solid company, and their guns hold up well under stress. Looking at Donnie made me feel sick to my stomach. I didn't even know the man, but no one deserved this. And to be honest, my gut had told me he was telling the truth when he told me his story. I hadn't noticed an ounce of deception in him. I picked up the shotgun, slamming another slug in the chamber as I walked over toward the black sedan, wondering what kind of human monsters I would find contained within. I looked in the shattered passenger's side window, under the dim moonlight streaming down from the cloudless sky. I could tell the passenger was dead as soon as I saw him. He had an exit wound the size of an orange on the left side of his skull. He had on a black suit and a tie with a clean-shaven face and a crew cut. An R-15 lay on his lap. I could see clear through his brains into the rest of the car beyond. It was a sickening and gruesome sight. The driver was still alive, however. He was dressed similarly to the gunman. He had light olive skin and dark eyes. His high cheekbones gave his face a narrow, gaunt aspect. I reached through the shattered passenger's side window and grabbed the rifle, throwing it on the road. Slowly and carefully, I circled around the car, keeping the shotgun raised. I got to the driver's side and found the window still intact, though a slug had ripped through the door and left a bullet hole the size of a quarter in the thick metal. I tried the door, but found it locked. Without hesitation, I used the butt end of the shotgun to smash through the driver's side window. Safety glass rained down onto the still body of the driver. I saw his eyes blinking fast, but he looked stunned and confused. A soft moaning came from his lips. A deep gash ran across his forehead, causing blood to trickle down and stain his undoubtedly expensive clothes. His right eye had begun to swell and change colors already, giving him a slant-eyed, winking appearance. The driver's side airbag had deployed during the crash, and his face had clearly hit at a high velocity. It looked like he might have been coming out of a full-blown concussion. "Get the fuck out of the car," I screamed at him, shoving the barrel of the shotgun hard against the front of his forehead. "And put your hands up. If you make any move, then I guarantee you, we will both see what color your brains are." I gave him a grim, sadistic smile. He raised his trembling hands in the air, his knuckles white with inner tension. I saw the lump of what looked like a pistol holstered under his jacket. I watched him closely, daring him to make a move. "Get out and keep your hands as high above your head as they'll go. If they drop an inch, I will shoot you. Do you believe me?" "Yes," he answered in a flat, dead voice. "Good," I said. "Because I am telling you the truth, I promise you that. Now open the door and get out slowly. Very, very slowly." After spitting blood and pieces of what looked like teeth onto the airbag and floor of the destroyed car, he pulled open the door and practically fell out of it. He caught himself at the last moment, hanging onto the top of the door and breathing heavily. His right eye was totally covered in fresh, gleaming blood, and I doubted if he could see much out of it. "Get down on the ground and put your hands behind your back," I said in an icy tone. With a look of pure hatred from his dark eyes, he lay down on the desert sand. I took off my belt and wrapped it around his wrists, binding them tightly. Then I reached into his coat and pulled out a pistol. "A45, I said, examining it. "Nice gun." "It's my work gun," he said, giving me a predatory smile. "At home, I wouldn't use such a small caliber, especially on scumbags like you and your friend." I shrugged. He wasn't actually my friend, just a total stranger who came to my house in the middle of the night. And like the good Samaritan I am, I helped him. "You're violating federal law by doing this," he spat at me. "You'll go to prison for the rest of your life." "Are you guys going to frame me like you did to Donnie?" I asked. "And then fake my execution too?" The agent went pale, the scowl on his face deepening. "I don't know what kind of conspiracy theorist bullshit you've been swallowing, friend, but everything you're saying sounds insane. I am a federal agent. You can check my pockets for my badge." "I don't give a shit what you are," I said. "As it stands, it looks like I have all the power and guns, and it looks like you have nothing. So what I want from you is the truth. You can tell me, or I can beat it out of you." I still felt sickened by what had happened to Donnie and his sudden death. I was not in a forgiving mood. And to be honest, violence never really bothered me much, even as a kid when I got into fights. A large part of it enjoys the thrill of it, the rush of beating a man into unconsciousness, and hearing his nose crack under your fist. The man hesitated, wincing like a beaten dog. Please, I really don't know what he began to say. Without hesitation, I brought my steel toe boot back and kicked him in the ribs. I heard a few of them crack under the blow with a sound like snapping twigs. He screamed as more blood filled his mouth. He rolled onto his stomach, his eyes wide and wild like a panicked animal in a cage. It took him a little while to calm down, but when he did, I knelt close to his face and whispered, "What I want from you," I repeated slowly, "is the truth." Still spitting blood, his face looking like a package of raw hamburger, he nodded. I rolled him over so that he was sitting on the ground, his legs splayed out in front of him. "Why don't you start by telling me your name?" "I'm Agent Keys, and, well, the truth is rather complicated," he said, his voice sounding nasally and strained through all of his injuries. I could tell it hurt him to breathe. "But I guess it boils down to this. Donnie's girl and her mother saw something that they weren't supposed to. Our surveillance picked up the craft, and cameras from the streets showed that those two were outside when it went overhead. Then we started listening to their calls, heard her telling Donnie about it, and our director insisted that we had to tie up the loose ends." "Why does it matter so much that she saw the craft?" I asked. "She not only saw the craft," he said, "she took a video of it on her phone. She didn't tell Donnie about that, but we were able to see it. You see, the craft isn't just some top-secret government plane or anything. It is a legitimate extraterrestrial craft, one being flown by the species that created humanity originally through genetic engineering. We usually call them the primes, after the notion of a prime mover." I laughed at that. "That's the craziest goddamn shit I've ever heard," I said. "Well, it gets a lot crazier, because your friend there is right. The United States doesn't actually execute anyone. It's all fake. It's easy with lethal injection, because the medical staff can just put opiates or sedatives in the line. Then, when the person is unconscious, we have a doctor go in, pretend to check his vitals, and certify the person dead. Hell, back when my dad worked for the agency, they had to fake electric chair executions with smoke and pyrotechnics. They'd drug the person beforehand, so that they would pass out and lose consciousness during the staged execution. To get them to shake and stutter, the medical staff would use a low, non-lethal dose of electricity." I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. "Why?" I asked. "Who would go through all that trouble?" he shrugged. "Well, that brings us to the interesting part," Agent Keys said, his one good eye sparkling with something strange and repulsive under the surface. The other had swelled into a slit of purple bruises, and I doubted whether he could see anything out of that eye. He still winced every time he breathed in too hard, probably from his cracked ribs. "The primes demand sacrifices from every major government in the world." Agent Keys continued, "We don't know exactly what they're doing with these subjects, though I doubt if it's anything good. Perhaps they are using them as guinea pigs for genetic engineering experiments. Maybe the primes just cut their throats and eat their flesh raw. Personally, I heard a strange buzzing from the sky, like the sound a high-voltage power line might make. Off in the distance, I saw something flashing across the sky, hues of silver and gold gleaming off the side of the sleek alien ship. It had no wings that I could see. It formed a shape like a spear. Thin strands of gold and silver weaved together, forming a graceful, interweaving outer shell. A cold blue light radiated from the craft as it gave off its strange buzzing noise. A strange smell filled the desert, almost like ozone mixed with some kind of sweet chemical odor. It moved in a strange, alien way, jumping forwards in a blur, and then stopping suddenly in mid-air, floating there like a hummingbird. Agent Key's words rang in my ears. A sense of panic filled my heart. Without hesitation, I ran towards my car. I knew I had no time to flee. I got down on my stomach, crawling underneath it, the warm pavement scraping my clothes and skin as I frantically pushed myself forward. Then I peered out, watching and waiting. About half a minute later, the buzzing became overwhelming as the ship stopped directly overhead. That horrendous sound seemed to vibrate my bones. I could feel my skull shaking. A few seconds later, a shape materialized in front of Agent Keyes' destroyed car. It had tentacles where its eyes should have been. They writhed like dozens of snakes, their thin, bone-white tendrils slithering in slow, disparate waves. Its body had a sleek, bloody look. Powerful muscles twitched and flexed under the skinless exterior. It towered over everything else in the area, standing nearly 9 feet tall. Then the figure spoke in a harsh, low voice. "You have not given your tribute," it said coldly. "You have broken your agreement." "The man killed his guard and escaped," Agent Keyes said, his hands still bound behind his back. "He spat blood. I tried to hunt him down, but—" He started to motion to my hiding spot with his head, apparently planning to try to give me to the aliens in Donnie's place. But the creature didn't give him time to finish. He had some black canister in his hand and sprayed Agent Keyes in the face. Agent Keyes tried to protest, stuttering some incomprehensible jumble of sounds. Then he groaned as his eyes fluttered and finally went limp. The alien creature made a series of clicking, guttural sounds as he lifted Agent Keyes' body up. A few seconds later, their bodies became translucent and then faded entirely from view. The ship jumped forwards, far out of view, and I found myself alone. As I crawled out from under the car, I saw the first police lights in the distance. The shrill sirens rang out across the silent desert like the wailing of a banshee. Once they found blood all over the area and the bodies of Donnie and the unnamed agent, the police immediately arrested me for suspicion of first-degree murder. They claimed I was some kind of spree killer who went berserk. I told them to check Donnie's identity, and they'd see my entire story was true, that the executions were staged, but they refused. In the trial, they claimed he was a John Doe, likely some unidentified hitchhiker or homeless person. Now I'm on death row. I had my lawyer post online this to warn other people. I want someone to hear my story, because I know that after they fake my death, I will disappear, and then a much more horrifying death will come. I will see our creators, the Primes, and maybe they will use me as a subject for some nightmarish experiment. The executions in the USA are staged, but I think by the time the Primes finish with me, I will wish they were real.